So you're going to start with a golf ball sized piece of clay, and it should be soft and wedged if you can wedge that, and then in your hands to make a coil. And your goal here is to make something that's maybe a little bit bigger than your thumb, and you want it to be bone shaped. So that means it's going to be thicker on the ends than it is in the middle. So to thin out the middle, I actually use my fingers and I'm going to pinch it. But I want to keep my fingers in this kind of diamond shape because I want the clay to fit in that. So I'm going to squeeze it in the middle to thin it out. I'm going to turn it over and do the same thing on the other side. And then I'm going to pinch down the middle. So this is going to be really slow, and you might have to take more than 1 or 2 tries to get a good shape. You want to get a nice even shape that is thinnest in the middle and thicker at the ends. So it should be bone shaped like this. And the more refined you can make it just by pinching it, the easier the next step is going to be. If you make a shape that is very lumpy, it's going to be very difficult to make a good handle. Okay, so from here, I'm just going to pinch it just a tiny bit more. From here, you're going to need to do what's called pulling. So we've made a bone-shaped lug, and a lug is the starting point for a pulled handle. From here, you're going to wet your hand and you're going to wet your piece of clay, and you actually want to pull or slide your fingers over that middle section. And I'm going to slow down so you can see that my fingers are completely wrapped around this clay. And basically what I'm trying to do is just smooth out any lumps and bumps that I might have made when I was forming it by pinching. Sometimes I turn it over and I pull it from the other side, but the trick is not to squeeze it too hard and try to squeeze it evenly. So you're just trying to smooth it out. All right, so now I have this really kind of thin shape in the middle, and it's definitely looking like a chicken bone or something like that. And then I'm going to curve it, and you can see that that's going to be the start of my handle. So I'm going to set that down. All right, after you pull the handle, you want to just lay it on its side and make it the shape that you want it to be. And obviously it's a little bit too big. There's these lumpy parts at the end. You want to cut those off. So I'm just going to take that same tool that we made, and I'm going to cut straight down to the table like that to cut the lumps off. And then I'm going to try it on my mug. So I want to make sure that it looks right on my mug. And I think that's going to look pretty good. So you can see what it would look like. I think I might cut it down just a little bit more. All right, so this is a pretty delicate cup, so I want to make sure that I make a matching handle, so one that's a little bit more delicate than thick. All right, so from here, I'm going to take the end of my loop tool that I made, and I'm going to just score it up really deep and ugly, both on the top and at the bottom. And again, this clay is still pretty soft. If it's not manageable for you, you might wait for just a little bit until you can handle it without making a lot of marks. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is score where I want it to attach on the cup. So just again, really deep scoring marks. If you don't like how this tool works, you can use a toothpick or something like that. Okay, and then I have my makeup brush, and I'm just gonna put that in some water, or if you have any white vinegar at home, that's even better than water. I'm gonna dampen up the scoring. And then I'm going to put the scored end of the handle against the scored mark there. I'm kind of wiggle it back and forth until it sticks. So you can see that I'm attaching the handle without squishing it. Same thing for the bottom of the handle. A little bit of vinegar or water. Attach by wiggling. Okay, and then lastly, you just want to take your little makeup brush, kind of dry it off on your table or your sponge, and you're going to brush around all the seams, making sure that the handle is firmly attached. And this also serves the purpose of removing any extra scoring marks if you weren't very careful. And I have a tendency not to be very careful with scoring because I want it to be permanently attached. I'm careful with a lot of things, but not really with scoring. Alright, so there's my cute little handle. I like to have just a little bit of an upward sweep on the handle, so I'm going to just pull the handle up just a little bit so that when I'm holding the handle, the weight of the cup is balanced. So I want to make sure it's really rounded underneath there. And you can see that it swoops up just a teeny tiny bit at the top there. All right, so now that your handle's attached, you're ready to wrap it up in plastic. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Mummify it really well because you don't want it fully dry for the next step that we're going to do next week.